I did say that I'm going to be doing movie reviews, and because of time constraints, I never really had time to do them. So I guess this movie is going to be my first movie review on this channel, and I will be covering movie news as well. I want to expand, right? So, okay, Rise of the Skywalkers, right? So basically, I think in terms of visuals, in terms of this movie, I give it a 10 out of 10. Why? It's because all the CGI, all the special effects that I've seen in this movie or in most of the Star Wars movies, most of the new Disney ones, are straight 10 out of 10. There's no bad CG, and that's because of the fan base obviously being massive and the amount of money that went into the special effects for this movie. So far from all the Disney Star Warses that they've created, the CG and the special effects visuals is a straight 10 out of 10, right? Now let's talk about, the story in general, because if I'm being honest, me, and I'm going to disclaimer here, I'm not a hardcore Star Wars fan, but I did actually do some research into the lore to have some kind of a basic understanding on how things are supposed to work. And if I really look at just with basic understanding at the story that they've delivered in this movie, I give this story a 7 out of 10, right? That's how I saw it. But don't confuse that though with my overall experience with the movie, because I was not bored in this movie. I wasn't bored at all. Every moment, the pacing, everything else was perfect. All right. So I'm going to talk about the good, and then I'm going to talk about the bad in this movie. Okay. So let's start with the first good, right? So the first good is the pacing of the movie. Like I said, I wasn't bored. There weren't times which I thought, okay, you know what? I don't care about this character, or I don't care about that person. I just want, this to, get it over and done with. I never felt that in this movie. And I felt that in quite a few movies in the past. I never felt that in here. That's a good thing. And that's why, it's overall, I think, a good experience. Now let's talk about the bad, okay? So from the start of this movie, I noticed one thing that people have been talking about in the previous movie and the movie before that, that was directed by J.J. Abrams, and it's that Rey is a Mary Sue. That was really negative. That's a huge negative, and kind of took me out of the movie, because from the start, Rey knew what to do, and there was that scene bit where she was levitating with rocks around her and stuff. All that was awesome, but it's like, she is too good with the Force. And even though we discover in this movie that she's a Palpatine, that doesn't necessarily, give her the right to be that powerful. It doesn't make sense. And she was being trained by Leia. We never even had information about how far Leia trained with Luke. And if that is the case, where is her lightsaber? Why did she not use her lightsaber? I don't believe we got any explanation as to why she didn't continue her training as a Jedi, because she is Force sensitive, right? And that would have helped her a huge deal in the tasks that she was doing with, the Resistance. All that didn't make sense. Now let's talk about the second positive here, and that is the Force powers. Now I've watched all the Star Wars films that have come out, and I haven't, like I said, I'm not a very hardcore fan. I'm just a casual fan, and I have done some research. I haven't gone into the comics and all these other, extended universe stuff that Disney doesn't consider canon anymore. But based on what I know, I've never actually seen people use the Force in the way they have in this film. Like, Rey literally pulled a ship out of the sky. She really was doing this. Kylo Ren was able to do this. Now, I want to know in the comments, right? Let me know right now if there is a character that is just as powerful that can do this within, another continuation somewhere that Disney has discredited right now. Because I have a feeling that Luke should be able to do this, or at least it's written somewhere that Luke is able to do this. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, I jumped out of my seat, because that was awesome. I've never seen someone do that. And apparently Darth Vader was one of the most powerful, Siths alive. And, well, in his time anyway. And I've never even seen him do that. People were saying how powerful he was, and I've never seen Darth Vader use the Force to that extent. So based on what I've seen, Darth Vader do compared to what Rey and Kylo Ren are doing. Rey and Kylo Ren are on a different level than what Darth Vader is visually, based on what I've seen in this movie, right? So that was good. And then there was the Force power where Kylo Ren and Rey could interact with each other, which I found very awesome. But at the same time, and this is a negative, it is kind of confusing because they don't exactly explain how this works. This guy literally snatched Rey's chain and literally looked at it. And the thing is, I would understand that this was like a little, mental battle that was going on by using the Force. However, this man actually had the necklace right in his hand, and he was walking and he knew exactly where Rey was. So if this is the case, does that mean that he is actually teleporting there, or is he using like a mental connection? It never made sense. Yeah, even though I like the new power, there was a lot of lack of explanation as to how it works, kind of thing, and I hope they, release some information about how it works, so we can finally understand this. And based on what I've heard that Disney does, they're not going to do that. They're just going to leave it as it is, right? So I guess the new Force powers are good, and I did give the negative sides about that. Now let's talk about another negative. So obviously we did the positive, negative, and then so on. So let's do another negative. So another negatives are the Knights of Ren. Okay, so me being a casual fan, if I know that Kylo Ren is one of the Knights of Ren, and at the start of this little Disney trilogy, I'm starting from The Force Awakens, this guy was so intimidating. We know what he's capable of using the Force, so I assumed that if not all, some of the Knights of Ren were Force sensitive, right? I didn't see any of that in this movie. In fact, they didn't even do anything in this movie. All they did was try and capture Chewbacca. I thought they were like, I don't know, some master weapon specialist, or they were secret assassins or something. Nothing happened. These Knights of Ren were easily dispatched by Kylo Ren after he got a blue lightsaber from Rey, which I kind of found symbolic, because obviously he threw away his lightsaber, the red one, which was cracked and kind of represented how he was feeling on the inside. But now he has a blue one, which obviously he got after he went back to the light and he finally found himself. So that kind of was a good representation, which is another positive, right? So let's talk about a positive now. So obviously this is a positive and negative. I like how Rey uses the Force in different ways than we've actually seen. So obviously I mentioned the first one, and then the other one is how Luke pops up, and all these other dead characters just pop up, right? And they interact with the living, which is also part of using the Force. I don't think anyone else who cannot use the Force would be able to see Luke. So it was good seeing all the old characters pop up, right? Now let's get on to the negative, right? So the negative thing that didn't make sense. You're gonna be hearing a lot of negatives from me. That doesn't necessarily mean the entire movie was bad, right? In terms of story, it was bad, yes. It wasn't necessarily that bad. It was just not enough for me to say, you know what, let me just rewatch this again, right? But I was gonna say how they handled Carrie Fisher's character, Princess Leia. Like, it doesn't make sense how she died. She literally, right, out of nowhere, sensed something while she was standing there in the base, like A-okay, and then goes to sleep, right? And then, I don't know, she had a little bead, and then she just calls Ben's name. I think she tried to use the Force, and she basically died. Like, in this movie, anyone that's overexerts themselves using the Force dies instantly, right? Luke died by using the Force, right? Rey, supposedly, I don't know if she was dead, but it looked like she was basically gone, died, because she used the Force, and all the other Jedi just, I don't know, gave her power or energy or some shit, and then she bounced back the Emperor's lightning back into this face. You would think that this man would actually learn from his first mistake, right? But the Emperor in this movie did not seem like the genius that he was in the previous one, when Luke was in his prime, kind of thing. This guy should have learned his lesson the first time if he was a genius, but he didn't, and he died the same way that he was supposed to have died when Vader was still around. So clearly the Emperor in this version is not as clever as he was before. Maybe he's become dumber because he's just been sitting there, but it can't be true, because look at the plans that he had. He was about to eradicate anyone who dared go against him in the entire universe, right? Or the galaxy. I don't know what his plan was, but he is a good planner. We know this because we've seen the visuals. So yeah, the way Leia was handled, it didn't make sense, but I guess I can say we can let that pass because they only had little material to work with Leia, and therefore they did the best they could. I really don't blame anyone for how things turned out. I think J.J. Abrams did a good job with the material or the mess that he was given to correct. So at least we can let that go. So yeah, those are my positives and negatives. So now I'm just going to talk about the movie in general and what I thought about it and certain scenes and whatnot. So we have C-3PO. I've thought that he was extremely funny. He said the right things at the right time, which made sense. Another thing about another characters, I say Finn. So Finn had some kind of confession that he wanted to tell Rey. It was something that would probably be deep because he didn't want Poe to be there, right? So I thought he was gonna say or tell Rey that he loves her, because all this man does is literally say Rey, 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 Rey. He just runs around and says Rey whenever Rey is in trouble, and he always chooses Rey. So I think that he's in love with her, and I think he was going to confess his love, but guess what? Kylo Ren cockblocked him by using the Force to get to Rey. And it, at the same time, like, if you look at the ending, right, it kind of makes sense because these people have been literally mind hacking each other's brains to figure out their strengths and weaknesses and, you know, what's going on in their minds. So in a way, they know each other better than, you know, any other person would know them. So yeah, you would have a better connection with someone because you literally are connected to them through the Force, and they are hardwired into your brain. They do know you better than anyone else. So it would kind of make sense to have a love story there. And I feel like the previous movie set that up really, really well. And I feel like them kissing in general was fan service that J.J. Abrams decided to give to the fans. So I like that. Poe, he didn't really, you know, do much. I feel like he had that whole cliche Star Wars thing where it's like, oh, we are in trouble now and we have no way out. But oh wait, I know this person that can do this to get us out of this situation. I remember, I think Poe did this in the previous movie as well. So clearly this guy, we don't know what's happened in his life, but he knows a lot of people that can get him out of tough situations, right? And I think he has a little girlfriend then that he used to mess with before he became a resistance pilot, right? Kylo Ren, one thing about him is the way he just basically changed from the dark side to the light. I think the only influence was obviously Leia, because he did say, I can't return after what I've done. So he felt that sense of shame, and I think his mom passing basically made him realize that, you know, she contacted me even though she was passing in her last moment, so she thought about me. So clearly she still thinks about me as her son, and he called me Ben. So that to me means that she still loved me, right? So therefore that makes him realize that even though he thinks he can't return to his mom, this whole time he could actually go back to his mom and everything would have been okay. His mom would have forgiven him. So feeling like his mom has forgiven him and tried to contact him still, right, and still loved him, he realized, okay, I do have the strength to turn back, and a ghost of Harrison Ford pops up, right? So Han Solo pops up. I don't think that this is a Force ghost, because obviously he would be glowing, right? This was actually, I think, a manifestation of his thoughts in his head, the conflict. And I liked how they repeated the scene where he killed Han Solo, but this time he actually did it right and he went to the light. So those are really good stuff going on there in the movie, and I really like the symbolism and whatnot. Like I said, I'm a casual fan, so therefore a lot of stuff is not gonna irritate me like it will to a hardcore fan. So yeah, that's basically my review. I really liked the movie. I didn't like it enough to rewatch the whole thing, but I really did like the movie. But in terms of story, I would give it probably a 7, like I said, 7 to 8 with everything together. And if you subtract the bullshit, I'd say it's a decent movie. Rey was just a Mary Sue going through everything and any obstacle by slicing through it like, you know, a hot knife and butter. And the last thing I want to talk about is the Force power they introduced with people sharing their life force. I feel like what they've introduced is this limitation that everyone has a certain amount of life force in them that they can use in order to use the Force. And if they overexert themselves, then they die. And I feel like that's why Luke died, because he used all the Force power that was within him, which doesn't make sense. The Force is just something you can just tap into and use without dying. So yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. But I want to know you guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. Like I said, I'm a casual fan, okay? So don't be trying to start shit in the comment section with each other. Okay, I just want to know your opinions in the comments. What do you think about the movie, and what do you think about my first review? With that being said, I will be doing more movie stuff on this channel, so subscribe for that. And I have nothing more to say. Bye.